An ollie is a trick where you tap the tail of the board to make it pop up while using your fingers to control where it lands. The first thing you do with an ollie is position your fingers in the right place. Put your index finger between the Tech Deck logo on the front bolts. Put your middle finger on the tip of the tail. Practice getting the motion of an ollie down by using your ring finger to pinch the tail. Remember, this is not a real ollie. You're just practicing the motion of the ollie. Once you've got your fingers adjusted to the board and tried out a couple of pinch ollies, move the board to your leg and try giving the board some pop without a pinch. Start off on the side of your leg so you can immediately turn the board upside down and then bring it back to a landing position. Do the upside down ollie and gradually move it to a horizontal position to the top of your leg. By that point you won't be going upside down anymore and you'll really be doing an ollie. The next step is to take this finger movement to a flat surface. Find a table or use the floor and practice the ollie with the same upside down motion. Again, gradually flattening out the ollie so that instead of going upside down, the board never goes past vertical. Now you're really doing an ollie. Practice height and control by ollieing different obstacles. Nollies are an ollie where you pop off the nose instead of the tail. These are more difficult, but you should practice them to strengthen your board control. Nollies take much more concentration to master. Place your index finger on the tip of the front bolts, just past where the nose starts to concave. Place your middle finger square on the back bolts. To do a nollie, you have to be rolling. Learn it by trying to go over another Tech Deck board. It's actually easier to nollie over an obstacle rather than on a flat surface. After you've gotten used to doing ollies, try a kickflip. The kickflip is a trick where the board flips in the air because your finger flips the board, making it turn in the air before you land back on it. When you first start to do kickflips, don't think about ollieing. Think about flipping the board by itself. Place your middle finger square over the tail, and your index finger should be in the same spot as the ollie, except move the finger off center, closer to yourself, just left of the bolts. At first, try these on your leg again, and start small, concentrating on flipping the board with your index finger, not ollieing high. Practice flipping the board from the side of your leg up onto the top of your leg, and landing with your fingers directly over the bolts. Remember that flipping the board is caused by curling your index finger quickly, and then extending it back to catch the board as it comes around, and then bringing it down for a landing. Do the curling motion at the same time as you pop the tail to ollie the board. Once you've gotten this motion down, move to a flat surface and try to go higher by ollieing more, flipping later, and catching it higher. It helps to practice kickflips over obstacles. The heel flip is a trick where the board flips the opposite direction of a kickflip. Place your middle finger on the tip of the tail on the side closest to you. Put your index finger in the ollie position just behind the bolts, and to the side furthest away from yourself, leaving the tip of your index finger hanging off a little bit. The heel flip is one smooth motion where you apply pressure to the board and pop it up. As soon as you pop, extend both fingers out, causing the board to flip over. Quickly bring your fingers back for the landing. When you first start learning, there is hardly any height on the heel flip. As you practice, learn to pop the board higher and onto obstacles. A 360 flip is when the board pops into the air and rotates 360 degrees while at the same time flipping at once. First things first, most people start learning 360 flips before mastering the ollie by flipping the board into a mad spin and then catching it randomly. This, however, is not a 360 flip. A real 360 flip is a controlled maneuver when the board rotates and flips exactly once before landing. Place your middle finger right on the tip of the tail hanging slightly off the side furthest from yourself. The index finger should be in normal kickflip position between the Tech Deck logo and the front bolts. Practice on your leg again by 360 flipping from the side of your leg up onto the top. There is no ollie involved in a 360 flip. It's more of a scoop motion where you apply pressure on the middle finger and swoop the tail in one motion. As the board reaches the 90-degree point of the spin, extend your index finger, which causes the board to flip. Catch the board with at least one finger at the 270-degree point of the spin, so that the board doesn't flip over a second time. Learning to catch it at 270 also helps when trying to 360 flip up onto an obstacle. As soon as you catch the board, let it get to a full 360, and then quickly bring it down for a landing. Once you've mastered this on the leg, take it to a flat surface and practice the controlled pop combined with the swoop motion of the leg. All the basic grind and slide tricks start with an ollie, so make sure that you can ollie with control. A 50-50 grind is a grind where both trucks are in contact with the obstacle. Put your fingers in the basic ollie position. You must ollie high enough to level the board out over the rail. Land evenly on both trucks with at least part of your middle finger on the tail, so that when you reach the end of the grind, you can push off slightly and keep the board level for landing. A nose grind is where you ollie up to a rail, but instead of putting both trucks down, you aim your front truck down and grind balanced in a wheelie position. You can also do this on your back truck, but then it's called a 5-0 grind. Your index finger should be directly over the nose so that you can control the balance of the board on the rail. A perfect nose grind or 5-0 should not include the board or the other truck touching the rail. When you get to the end of the rail, grind faster and pop lightly off the rail without tapping your nose or tail on the rail. There are two ways to approach a grind or slide, front side and back side. Front side is when you approach the obstacle with your fingertips pointing at the rail. Back side is when your fingertips point away from the rail. A front side lip slide is when you approach the obstacle with your fingers pointing towards it and ollieing 90 degrees over the rail. Land the board evenly on the trucks and slide on the graphics of the board. When you land on the board, tuck your index finger and straighten your middle finger through the slide. To come off, return your fingers to normal position, straighten out the board, and roll away. The backside lip slide is the same as the frontside lip slide, except you approach the object with your fingers pointing away from it. Ollie over the rail and land in the same 90-degree slide position. However, in this position, the middle finger is tucked and the index finger is pointed. Come off the same as you would a frontside lip slide. A tail slide is a trick where the tail of the board slides along the object at a 90-degree angle. It's the same tuck motion with the fingers as a lip slide, except all the pressure is on your middle finger. This keeps the board balanced horizontally on the rail. Tail slides require more board control, precisely aiming the tail of the board at the rail. You can also do a nose slide where you aim the nose at the rail with your index finger. Approach a backside tail slide with your fingers pointed away from the rail. Ollie like a backside lip slide, but land and apply pressure on the tail. This is probably the toughest of the basic slide tricks. If you can't drop in, then you haven't been paying attention. The drop in is a way to start out any run on a half pipe. Roll up to the coping, which is the edge of the ramp, and set the tail on top of the ramp so that the wheels hang over the edge. In one smooth motion, drop into the ramp, keeping balanced and moving. A fakie rock is a trick where you roll up to the edge of the ramp, lifting slightly up on the nose and placing the middle of the board on the coping. Stall for a second, and then lift up on the nose, bringing your front truck up over the coping and rolling back in. The feeble grind. A feeble is when the board is in a position where the back truck is on the coping and the middle of the board is touching the coping in a tweaked position. To do a feeble, roll up to the coping and in one smooth motion, point your index finger and tuck your middle finger. This will lock the back truck onto the coping and place the middle of the board on the coping as well. You don't want the back truck to go past the coping or you'll slip out. Put pressure on the tail and return your fingers to a normal position while you roll back in. A backside pivot is like a feeble, except the board isn't touching the coping, only the back truck locks on. Roll up to the coping and do the same feeble motion, but leave your pressure on the tail. Keep your back truck over the coping and lock the wheel to it by pivoting at a 90-degree angle. Lighten the pressure on the tail and straighten the board to roll back in. You can do pivots both front side and back side depending on which way you pivot the board. A blunt is a trick where you roll past the coping, stalling the board in a vertical position on the tail. Roll up the ramp, lifting both trucks over the coping. Just as the back wheels go past the coping, apply pressure to the tail, locking the wheels on the top of the ramp. To go back in, pop the tail like an ollie, and clear the trucks, rolling in backwards. Try mixing up these basic tricks. For example, do a blunt, but instead of popping straight back in, land on the bottom of the board and stall for a second, like a fakie rock, before rolling back in. You can also combine these tricks with ollies, grinds, slides, and kickflips to do increasingly difficult trick combinations.